Greetings everyone, my name is Mrs. Mwabaya from the Dow Academy. I'm here to deliver a lesson on biology, IGCSE. The topic is the eye. Right. The objectives of our lesson today is define sense organs as group of receptor cells responding to specific stimuli, that is light, sound, temperature, and chemicals, sometimes pressure. And then the second one, identify the structures of the eye limited to the cornea, iris, pupil, lens, retina, optic nerve, and the blind spot. And then the third one, describe the function of each part of the eye limited to the cornea, iris, lens, retina, and optic nerve. And then the last one, explain the pupil reflex in terms of light intensity and pupil diameter only. Right. Then so an eye, just like any other sense organ, it responds to a stimuli which is light, right? So it has got a specialized group of cells which are the receptors which respond to light. They detect a change in the environment. So in the event of the eye, it responds to light. And then the light will stimulate electrical impulses which are sent to the brain for the interpretation of the image, right? So sense organ, in a nutshell, they contain a group of receptors that respond to specific stimuli. For example, if you touch a hot plate, the hot plate will be a stimuli so that one can remove a finger from the hot plate. So the eye is the sense organ responding to a specific stimuli, which is the eye. Right, so here there is a diagram of the eye, which is showing us the parts of the eye. I'm going to go step by step to describe the functions of the parts of the eye. We start, the eye has got a jelly-like structure which is called the vitreous humor. The vitreous humor, it keeps the eye in an eyeball shape, and it helps to bend the light so that it can be focused onto the retina. And then we have in front here, we have got the aqueous humor. The aqueous humor is a fluid that fills the front of the eye, and it helps to nourish the eye. And it helps also in the bending of the light so that it focuses onto the retina. And then we have the conjunctiva. The conjunctiva is just a thin layer, it's protective, and it protects the inner parts of the eye. And then the pupil, it is a hole through which the light passes, right? And its size is controlled by the iris. The iris, it helps to control the size of the pupil so that not so much light enters the eye to prevent damage of the eye. Then the lens, they are disc-shaped, and they help to focus the light onto the retina. And then the size of the lens, it is controlled by what we call the suspensory ligaments and the ciliary muscle. The suspensory ligaments, these are thread-like structures which can tighten or loosen depending whether one is focusing on a near object or a distant object. And then the ciliary muscle, which is just on top, even here, it's down there, it can contract and relax, and this is going to bring a change in the shape of the lens. Right. And then again we have what we call the cornea. The cornea is a clear area of the sclera which helps to bend the light onto the retina. This is the cornea, right? And then we have at the back of the eye, there are several layers. We start with the choroid layer. The choroid layer is dark. It helps to absorb the light that enters the eye so that the light is not reflected back, or it does not scatter back, so that a clear image is made. It is found at the back of the eye. This is the one in, like, people who are blind sometimes, you find that the choroid layer, it is damaged. Under normal circumstances, the choroid layer should be dark, and so that it absorbs the light that enters the eye. The choroid layer, in a nutshell, it prevents light from being reflected back, because if it is reflected back, a clear image is not made. Right. The choroid layer, again, it contains some blood vessels which helps to feed up the eye. Remember, an eye is a living organ. So it needs oxygen, it needs glucose for it to respire and release energy, which is needed for nerve impulse transmission, for its growth and development. Right, and then we have what we call the sclera. The sclera is tough, strong outer layer which protects the eye, the internal working parts of the eye, and it has also many blood vessels which supply the retina with the food and oxygen. Then, also at the back of the eye, we have the optic nerve. The optic nerve, it sends impulses to the brain. Initially, when light enters the eye and it is focused onto the retina, an impulse is created which goes to the brain via the optic nerve so that an image is interpreted. So the optic nerve, its main function is to carry impulses from the back of the eye to the brain so that an image is interpreted. Then the point of attachment of the optic nerve is called the blind spot. It is called the blind spot. Why? Because there are no light sensitive receptors there. Then we have the fovea. The fovea, it is a small area of the retina which is mainly concentrated with cones. Cones are responsible for responsible to detect light of high intensity and at the same time for color vision. For someone to see that this is blue, this is red, it is the job of the cones. They respond to three, that is blue, red, and green. And then we have the retina. The retina is a layer of light sensitive cell which send impulses to the optic nerve. And this is just a summary of the structure of the eye. So my plea is that, let's say someone is not getting how to, it's better to get a plain diagram of the eye, then you try to label on your own. The most crucial things is the retina, the fovea, the blind spot, the optic nerve, the sclera, and the choroid layer. And then at the front of the eye, one should know the cornea, right? And one should know the lens, one should know the pupil, one should know the iris. The iris is this, is made up of saccular muscles and radial muscles which control the size of the pupil. And then the ciliary muscles, suspensory ligaments, done with the structure of the eye. This is just a summary of what I have been discussing, or what I've been talking about. Cornea, tough transparent layer covering the front of the eye. It refracts the light. Iris, it's colored part of the eye that contains muscles. These muscles, they work antagonistically, which means they oppose each other. When the other one contracts, the other one relaxes. We are going to look at that as we are looking at the pupil reflex. Then it controls how much light enters the eye. Because if there is too much light, the eye gets damaged. If also there is light, less light, the pupil has to become big so that more light enters the eye, so for one to see in the dark. Let's say one walks into the dark room. And then the lens is transparent and bioconvex, flexible disc behind the iris, and it is attached to the ciliary muscle and the suspensory ligaments. This helps to refract the light. And the amount of the light can be adjusted by altering the thickness and the curvature of the lens. Then the ciliary muscles, they are connected to the lens. They help also in the focusing of the light, in changing the thickness of the lens. Then the suspensory ligaments, they connect to the ciliary muscles so that they can adjust the thickness of the lens. They can either slacken or tighten, depending whether focusing on a near or distant object, like it is illustrated there. Then the retina, this is the lining at the back of the eye, containing two types of light-sensitive receptor cells, which are the rods that are sensitive to dim light. Let's say you are moving in a dark, into a dark area, the rods are responsible for you to see that even if it's dawn and you can see that this is a tree, it is responsibility of the rods to see in dark vision, in dark areas. And then the cones, they are responsible for bright vision and they are sensitive to color. Right, so I want to talk about what happens in the pupil reflex. A reflex action, just like we did in nervous coordination, a reflex action, it is automatic, it is rapid, and it has a protective measure. It is automatic, rapid, and it has a protective measure. Before I go to the pupil reflex, I give an example of, let's say, one is driving and you are about to bump into another car. You don't need to think to say, can I apply brakes? It has to be automatic first so that you apply brakes and avoid bumping into another car. Or let's say one touches a hot plate. You don't need to think to say, should I remove my hand or should I keep my hand? One has to, it's automatic first so that you are protected. That's the same thing with the pupil reflex. It protects us from it protects our eye from being damaged by too much light. So when one is exposed to too much light, the pupil has to be adjusted in such a way that we have less light entering the eye. When one is in a dark room, the pupil has to adjust in such a way that it will allow more light to enter so that one can have a clear vision of what is there. So what happens in the reflex action is that the main issue is a protective measure and through controlling the amount of light. So it is a reflex that controls the diameter of the pupil in response to the intensity of the light that falls onto the retina in the back of the eye, thereby assisting in the adaptation of vision to various levels of light. The reflex action carried out to protect the retina from damage in bright light and protect us from not seeing objects in dim light. Then in dim light, the pupil dilates in order to allow as much light to enter as possible to improve. In bright light, the pupil constricts in order to prevent too much light entering the eye. So, like I said, the iris, it controls the size of the pupil. So, the iris, it has got two sets of muscles which work antagonistically, same as the bicep and the tricep. When the other one contracts, the other one relaxes. So the iris is what we call circular muscles and radial muscles. When someone moves from the dark room to the bright room, the pupil has to become small so that less light enters the eye. When one moves, get me right, when one moves from a dark room to a bright room, the pupil has to become small so that less light enters the eye. How does it manage this? The circular muscles of the iris, it contracts. The radial muscles relax. This is going to shrink the pupil to become small. When one moves from the bright room to the dark room, the opposite takes place, which means in this case now, the circular muscles relax and the radial muscles contract. This is going to dilate the size of the pupil, making more light to enter. Right. So this is what is there in the bright. The eye is in a bright environment. Photoreceptor detect a change in the environment. Radial muscles relax, circular muscles contract, the pupil constricts, less light enters the eye. This is the diagram which shows what happens. You can see that this is the pupil, this blackish thing is the pupil, and then this bluish thing is the iris. So what happens in dim light, the pupil has to become big. You can see that it's big as compared to this one, so that more light enters the eye so that one can have a clear vision. So what happens, this iris, which is bluish in color, its sets of muscles, which are the radial muscles and the circular muscles, they work together in order to make sure that this is big. How do they work together? To make it, the pupil big, the radial muscles, they are going to contract and the circular muscles relax. And this is going to cause the pupil to dilate. As you can see on the table there, that in a dark room or where there's dark light, the radial contracts, the circular relax, and the pupil becomes wider and more light enters the eye, and this is going to bring a clear vision. And then in bright light, we say in bright light, the circular muscles, they are going to contract, and this is going to cause the pupil to become small. You can actually imagine the scenario of you are holding a circular thing. For you to make it small, you try to squash it like this, and this is brought about by the circle thing. And then when when the circular muscles contract, the radial are going to relax, and this is going to squash the pupil to become small, and less light enters the eye. This prevents damage of the eye. This is the pupil reflex that protects us, that protects our eye from being damaged by too much light, and for us to have a clear vision when we are in the dark room or one is moving in the dark. Then accommodation. Accommodation, these are the changes that takes place inside the eye for someone to look at a distant object or looking at a near object. So these changes are brought about by the suspensory ligaments, by the ciliary muscles. So the way it is done, it is mainly the action of the two. So the way the lenses brings about fine image or fine focusing is called accommodation. So this is just simply the adjusting for near and distant object. The lens is elastic and its shape can be changed when the suspensory, the lens are elastic and its the shape can be changed when the suspensory ligaments are attached to it. They become tight and loosen. The changes are brought about by the contraction and the relaxation of the ciliary muscles. So when one is looking at a distant object, the suspensory ligaments, they slacken, and this is going to cause the when one is looking at a near object, the suspensory ligaments they slacken, and this is going to help focus on the retina. So it depends on one is focusing on the near object or distant object. Right, let's look now. One is looking at a near object. Ciliary muscles contract. 1. Suspensory ligaments slacken. This is going to allow the lens to become thicker or they become fatter, and light is refracted more to focus onto the retina. So one needs to know, focusing on a near object, ciliary muscles contract, the suspensory ligaments slacken, they become less tight, and this allows the lenses to become thicker or fatter, and this refracts the light more, thereby focusing a near object. Then when looking at a distant object, the opposite takes place. Ciliary muscles, they relax, and then the suspensory ligaments tighten. This is going to cause the lens to become thinner, and this is going to, light is going to be refracted less, thereby focusing on a distant object. So the changes that takes place inside the eye, they help us to focus on near or distant objects. So this is the diagram showing the illustration: distant object, the suspensory ligaments pulled tight, the ciliary muscle relax, and then this is going to pull. If you can see, the lenses are long and thin. This is going to allow the light to be refracted less, thereby focusing a distant object. Then when looking at a near object, the ciliary muscles contract. They do the opposite of what happens here. They contract, and then the suspensory, they slacken, and you can see that the lens here, they become what? They become thicker, they become fatter, they become bulged, and this is going to allow the light to be refracted more, thereby focusing on a near object. So this is just the front view of the eye. This is the side view of the eye. The front view, then the side view, near and distant object. And the secret which is there, what I got from my lecturer at varsity, that in biology, to make it, because there are a lot of things, you master one and forget about the other, knowing that if what you know comes, you write what you know. If what you don't know comes, you write the opposite of what you know. Thank you.